It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 104 day. Day in the neighborhood. My people, my brothers and sisters. Before we get into this video, y'all, I gotta ask y'all a question, bro. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word cult? C-U-L-T. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind is some people who following behind a leader, regardless of his actions, regardless if he doing good or bad, regardless if you can see through the bullshit, but your mind don't even let or will allow you to see through the bullshit that they portraying to you, that they telling you. That's what a cult is to me, bro. Like, the leader, whoever running the cult, whoever the head man is, he can shit right out in the open. I'm talking about literally take a shit and you will go up to it. If you follow him, if you part of the cult, you will go up to that pile of shit and smell it and think it smells like roses. Like, you'll think it smells good just because it's coming from him. That's my idea of a cult, bro. Y'all get what I'm saying, bro. That's my idea, bro. And the whole reason I'm asking this because the channel we going to is our homegirl, and she got a story about a cult leader, and that is Anna Uncovered. Not Anna Sauls, y'all. It's the same lady, but like I said, bro, she got multiple channels, bro, and we're going to Anna Uncovered this time for this one. And the title of the video is The Rock Star Who Created a Cult to Violate Underage Girls. Underage girls. He created a cult to do this. So that means probably, I don't know, because we ain't got to the story yet, but I'm assuming that he got dudes bagging him up, like grown men bagging him up, violating underage girls. Like, he got people in on this shit with him, bro. Which sound even more crazy than him doing it by himself. Y'all get what I'm saying, bro. But we finna get into the story, man. I'm really interested to see what the hell went on with this one. But before we see what the hell went on with this one, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you might need. Get what you need, man. We finna get into it, bro. We back to Anna again, bro. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to do it? Then let's fucking do it.
He was a manipulative, functional, psychotic, a sociopath.
If he said the sky is green, they were going to believe it.
I think those people died because of his failed leadership.
What's the most sickening true crime case you've heard of so far? Well, let me tell you, today's case might top them all off.
This guy is a liar and a fraud, and he took advantage of children.
He said it was his duty to have 21 children by virgins.
What's worse than a psychopathic man abusing girls in every way imaginable? The same man convincing hundreds of people that he is God. That's right. In the early 1990s, David Koresh rose to power as the cult leader of the Branch Davidians, an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventists. He'd become a rock star using his extensive knowledge of the Bible and his personal charm to invite hundreds of others into his creepy cult. And when I say creepy, trust me, that's an understatement. People adored and trusted their leader, but they were turning a blind eye to some unimaginable stuff. Warning, if you're triggered by the topics of child abuse and gun violence, this is your chance to turn back. If you're ready, let's dive into the case of the rock star who created a cult to violate underage girls.
Get whatever
if you're a
you
true
may
crime
need.
lover, then you probably know that the most creepy fellas come from really disturbing families. David Koresh didn't always have this name. He was born Vernon Wayne Howell on August 17, 1959. He grew up in this modest home in Houston, Texas, His mom, Bonnie Sue Clark, was just about to turn 15 when she had him.
I
Damn.
was very much in love with David's father, but my daddy wouldn't allow us to get married. He was 19, I was 15.
As soon as Bonnie had her son, her boyfriend lost interest in the relationship. He was an irresponsible boy, and being a father scared him off. Within months, he was in another relationship.
He saw him a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and then after he was 4, Vernon was 4, I moved away to the Dallas area from Houston.
Vernon didn't meet his dad.
Hold on, bro. Real talk. I gotta say something real quick, y'all. Real quick. But for real, bro. I feel like, goddamn, okay, she got pregnant. She was 15, not even 15 yet, 14, 15, whatever. And got pregnant by a 19-year-old. Like, I feel like we need laws against that shit now, bro. If you 18, 19, bro, you can't be having babies with nobody who in junior high or barely in high school. Like, dude, no, man. That shit should be against the law. But let's go.
Until he was 17 years old. But having an absent dad was the least of Vernon's problems. Soon after her boyfriend left, Bonnie started living together with a raging alcoholic. Ironically, this was a union that Bonnie's father did bless, and the two of them got married. Their marriage broke apart after just 2 years. The experience was simply excruciating for Bonnie, but it was just as bad for young Vernon.
There was a couple times that he whipped him sort of hard, left bruises on his behind. It was about 2 years we were together. It didn't work out.
According to David, his stepfather shouted at him and even abused him sexually.
Wow.
Imagine the kind of mark that leaves on a toddler. In 1962, Bonnie was an 18-year-old divorcee out of work. She was desperate to make ends meet and turn her life around. Heartbroken, she left Vernon in the care of her mother, Earline Clark. For 3 years, Vernon lived with his grandmother in a quiet, peaceful home in Texas. For Bonnie, this was her salvation.
I don't know what I'd done without my mother. She was a big help to me because I was searching for myself.
But for Vernon, forever switching homes was difficult. A child needs stability, and Vernon didn't have this. In fact, his situation would change yet a few more times. When he was 7, he went to live with his mother again. This time, she'd remarried to a carpenter named Roy Halderman. Bonnie was happy to be together with her son again. By now, he'd grown into a very energetic boy. He'd even earned a nickname, Sputnik, after the Soviet satellite. It seems like he had a crazy amount of energy 24/7. You'd think that living with your grandma in the countryside would calm you down, but there was something special about Vernon, something his family couldn't quite put their finger on. In 1966, the same year that Vernon moved in with his family, Bonnie gave birth to his stepbrother, Roger. The boys would get on well, but by this time, Vernon was 7 and he was going to school. And school proved to be a huge problem for him.
They started evaluating David because he was having problems with certain areas in school, even though he had a high IQ and was very smart.
Vernon had a severe case of dyslexia. He was suffering and he found it very hard to read. He also found it very hard to study, concentrate, and remember facts and numbers. Soon enough, he was put in a school for children with special needs. As if this wasn't discouraging enough, Vernon started getting severely bullied for it. Some of the kids were calling him Mr. Retardo.
And I said, well,
Wow.
You know you're not retarded, so just don't pay any attention to him.
But you know how hard that is when you're a kid and you're getting bullied every single day?
That shit is hard on a child, bro. We done all been there, man. Be for real, bro. As a kid, bro, at some point in your life, you have got bullied by somebody, bro. You know what I'm saying, bro? So we know how that feel, man. We know how it really, if that shit was prolonged, like for me, it wasn't prolonged, but it has happened. But if it just happened and it keep happening and it just, it can be bad, bro. Getting bullied can really lead to further problems in life.
Later on, David Koresh would speak about those days affecting his self-esteem. So Vernon found places to escape, things he could do where no one could bother him. One of those things was music. Vernon wanted to become a rock star, and he'd learned to play the guitar pretty well.
David wanted to be a rock star. That was his goal, and he sure could play loud enough to be a rock star.
The other escape was religion. You might say nice, a life of peaceful devotion. But Vernon was about to combine rock stardom with religion in the creepiest way imaginable. Vernon was raised as a Seventh-day Adventist, just like Bonnie and Roy. This meant that they believed in the second coming of Jesus Christ. But young Vernon had an unusual amount of passion for studying the Bible and Seventh-day teachings, especially for a young teen.
He really took an interest in learning the scriptures and taking them to heart and studying and wanting to know why things happened and why God did this and that. And he was really interested, and especially in the Old Testament.
When Bonnie got him a new radio, he would listen to the preachers all day long. That's when his love for religion morphed into a love for preaching. These people had an immense power over other people. They felt that God was speaking directly to them and convinced thousands, if not millions of it. People listened to preachers and followed their instructions word for word. By the time he was a young teenager, Vernon was convinced God was speaking directly to him as well, and that he should become a preacher too. That is what led him to change his name to David Koresh. Koresh is the biblical name of Cyrus the Great, a Persian king who is named a Messiah for freeing the Jews during the Babylonian captivity. Even though he didn't officially change his name until 1990, let's address him by David now. By the age of 12, he had made a choice to be a preacher, and this choice determined the rest of his life. David was...
Bro, how many people out there want to be a preacher at 12 years old or whatever she just said? Like, he was a little child, bro. So that's kind of shocking to me. Like, that's a wild moment in the story, bro. For him to be at such a young age and already want to be a preacher. But are he doing it for the right reasons? Let's see.
Would listen to preachers' sermons, then recite them loudly in his own home. He would do this so often that he would eventually overcome his dyslexia. David's schoolmates would grow up and get drunk, meet girls, and go to parties, but David did none of those. He was a sworn member of the Seventh-day Adventists. However, after he finished high school, he fell in love for the first time. When he was 19, David had a baby with his 15-year-old girlfriend.
What's up with these 19-year-olds having babies with 15 years old? I know it's back in the 60s and early 70s, but still, bro, that shit weird to me.
Just like Bonnie and his father.
Her name was Linda. She was around, I think, 14 or 15. Beautiful, beautiful, blonde-headed girl.
But when Linda got pregnant, her dad forbade her from seeing David again. This was terrible news for him.
Losing Linda had a very big impact on David's life because I know he loved her very well.
David felt lost. He thought he was going to be a devoted family man, but since that wasn't going to happen, what could he do? In 1981, David appeared on the doorstep of the Mount Carmel Center in Waco, Texas. This was the headquarters of the Branch Davidians.
The Davidian sect has existed since the 30s. As a breakaway group from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And the Davidians have long believed when Jesus will return, the world will be destroyed.
The cult might have steered away from a bigger religion, but by the 1980s, they were very different from it.
I look at the Branch Davidians as a whole separate country. They speak a whole separate language. They have a whole different belief system from what mainstream America has.
David wanted to join them, and it didn't take any interview or special process to do so, so he was welcomed right in. At this time, the Davidians were led by 67-year-old Lois Roden. When she heard David give his interpretation of the Bible, Lois was very impressed, so she decided to take David under her wing.
One morning, she got up and says David Koresh had been coming and studying with her at night in her house and had been showing her things.
Lois was charmed by David and his passion for the Bible. She started pushing him forward in the hierarchy of the group and introduced him as the man who will shed new light on the old scriptures. Soon enough, David had the power that he dreamed of as a child. He'd become the influential preacher.
Revelation of John the Apostle.
If you looked at him, David was your average 1980 hippie. Long hair, big glasses, comfortable clothes. But when he spoke, he really had a talent to charm his listeners. His memory was also very impressive.
He could recite whole passages, paragraphs and paragraphs from the Bible without looking at any source.
Now, it might not be a superhuman strength to have a great memory, but it contributed to his popularity. Before long, he had convinced his listeners that he could speak directly with God.
He had gotten the
He taking it too far now, bro. He took it over the bridge. He jumped over the bridge. He fell off the bridge. In my eyes. You around here talking about you can talk to God, bro. Me, you, my people out there listening to me right now, ain't none of us ever heard God speak. So stop it, David. Stop it. But it's crazy, bro, because he convinced people that he could hear God speak. Let's go.
group to the point where he didn't have to speak from the Bible anymore. He could just speak as if from God. God's lips to your ears.
But David was harboring some really dark thoughts inside his mind. He didn't just want to appear godlike and have immense power over others. He wanted to abuse others, just like he'd been abused as a child.
Oh, man.
Soon after joining the Davidians, David didn't just get under Lois's skin. He actually went to bed with her. This was shocking to a lot of people. On the one hand, there was a 40-year gap between them. On the other hand, who sleeps with the cult leader? But things would take a dark turn very quickly. David also seemed to be into young girls, very young ones. First, he married 14-year-old Rachel Jones, the daughter of a famous Davidian family. For David, this was almost like a royal union. It solidified his power as the heir to the Davidian throne. When Lois would pass away, he would become the cult leader as he was married to the famous Rachel Jones. But this didn't sit well with Lois's son, George.
George was very upset because George saw himself as the heir apparent to the group because he was Lois Rodin's son.
In 1984, George had gathered the authority to kick David out of Mount Carmel. But David didn't leave alone. He took his wife, baby, and 25 followers with him. They made a cabin in the woods at the Palestine camp, some 90 miles from Waco. They lived in buses and tents for 2 years.
When I
Bro, this coat shit just blow my mind, bro. It just blows my mind, bro. The fact that he could take, okay, it took your wife and your baby, but you convinced 25 other people to come be with you and be on this bullshit. That shit blows my mind, bro, how a group of people can just be that delusional. Let's go.
arrived, there was the one log cabin in the center. And then there were a bunch of buses that had been hollowed out and people were living in the buses. There was no plumbing, there was no electricity. I call it the Piney Woods.
Meanwhile, Lois Rodin died and George was losing followers. David was sending out alluring invitations to Palestine camp. He made it sound like heaven for any Davidian. So George challenged David to an outrageous contest. They would compete in raising a 20-year-old corpse to life, the body of Anna Hughes. But David just took advantage of the situation. George had dug up Anna Hughes's casket, and David knew this was illegal. So his followers called the sheriff and informed them of it. The sheriff wanted proof, so David and 8 of his men went to George's camp to take photos of the casket. But when they got there, a gunfight started. They were all armed, and David shot and injured multiple people. So that day,
Bro, this shit done turned crazy as fuck, y'all. This shit just went crazy.
David was arrested, but he argued that it was all in self-defense, so he wasn't convicted. He would return to Palestine camp the next day, and the weird competition with George would temporarily stop. But within a year, George would be in jail, arrested for murder. This was David's big opportunity. A few days after George's arrest, David and his followers moved back to Mount Carmel. This is also when David officially changed his name. He now wanted to show people that he was their leader, a new, powerful man who no longer had enemies. Now, he had fully embraced his rock star persona, quite literally. But music wasn't just a separate passion of David's. He knew that rock music was attractive to the young generation, and he would use his rock skills to invite kids and teenagers to his camp.
What began happening over a course of time is it was almost like a tradition where after dinner, They would call the band and we'd play for about an hour or so.
Sometimes David's study sessions would last well into the morning hours, sometimes all the way to sunrise. He was the first rock star cult leader in the literal sense. But this wasn't enough for him either. In 1990, he branched out by opening a new Davidian center in Laverne, California.
After David became the top dog at Mount Carmel, the group bought a house in California, which was used when they were trying to make it in Hollywood and in the music scene. It was their base of operations for the musical ministry in its attempt to Christianize the world through Hollywood.
Then he brought guns into Mount Carmel. That's right, he was setting up his own little military camp.
People have asked me what it was all about for David. Was it money? Was it love? Was it power? I believe it was power. It was about a man who wanted a group of people to obey him.
And under David's instructions, the camp started having military rules too.
And see, bruh, at this part, bruh, he has abandoned all the Bible shit. He ain't even on that tip no more. He done got control of these people, bruh, and now he just trying to run his own shit, bruh. He creating his own shit. He ain't even about the Bible and God and all that, what he portrayed it as first. He just did that so he can get this group of people to believe in him, and now he doing whatever the fuck he want to.
Children would get beaten with sticks whenever they would misbehave. The adults would get punished too. Still, David was adamant that he was Christ reincarnated, sinful Messiah, as he described himself. Sheesh. Here's where it gets super creepy. As the self-proclaimed reincarnation of Christ, David said everyone in the camp is married to him. He canceled people's marriages to one another and said all women were now his. As Christ, he was the only one allowed to father children in the camp. He was also the only one allowed to have intercourse in Mount Carmel, while he and all the girls he fancied.
Sounds insane. It would be insane to most people. Where Koresh has babies, as many babies as possible for the kingdom of God, and he gets all the women.
And more specifically, all the girls. Sadly, most of the girls David fathered children with were underage. He would also urge the girls not to tell anyone outside the camp about it because, quote, they wouldn't understand. So he knew perfectly well that what he was doing was wrong and illegal, and he was intimidating the girls into obedience.
Bro, this fucking, I know I keep pausing it, but bro, y'all just follow me, bro. Just listen to me, bro. This shit is so, this shit crazy, y'all. Don't y'all agree that this fucking cult shit, how people can just follow behind one person and just believe in this one person, bro. This man that took over all the women in the camp, and he the only one who have babies with him, and everybody okay with this? Like, oh my God, bro. This crazy. Let's go.
According to a former Davidian who spoke to the U.S. Department of Justice in 1993, some of the girls were only 11 and 12 when David had babies.
What? 11 and 12?
Another girl, Kiri Jewel, confessed in court that she was 10 when David first molested her after reading from the Bible. Honestly, how can you combine Bible readings and this? David had at least 12 babies during this time. As his children and the other children on the camp would report later, they were raised in extremely abusive circumstances. Every child had to call David father, and their biological parents dogs. This included his own kids. They would call their mothers dogs. He would call anyone a bastard if they weren't his kids. Children would get beaten, starved, or isolated for days on end if they didn't behave exactly how David wanted, or if they didn't agree he was God. By now, David Koresh didn't just settle for Christ reincarnated. He wanted to be God himself. David would have children fight against each other as a part of their military training. They would have to fight until he would see blood, and if they refused, he would beat them even harder. He even had whipping rooms for the children. Meanwhile, he would threaten them with death if they spoke to anyone outside the camp. He referred to anyone outside as the bad guys, and he had the children believe he would rise from his grave as a ghost and haunt them forever if they spoke to the bad guys. And during his sermons, David Koresh described sex in great detail in front of little kids. He also groomed all the girls to want to be his brides. He made them believe it was God's plan for them to have babies with him.
I realized I was being called to do something for God, and that if I did this, I could open my Bible and see it right there and go, this is what I'm doing. This is my part in the story.
Dr. Bruce D. Perry said, "It's a truly heartbreaking thought that dozens of children were subjected to David Koresh in that terrifying camp. Those who have survived will forever struggle with PTSD, trust issues, and several other traumas." You might ask why I said those who have survived. Well, this story is about to become even more tragic. Sadly, in 1993, David Koresh caused the deaths of 86 people.
What? Bruh, my people, Lord have mercy. I had forgot all about this part of the story. When we read the title, the rock star who created a cult to violate underage girls, like, I didn't even factor into the part that he had killed people, bro. I forgot all about that, bro. The part that he could have potentially not killed or got people killed or made them kill themselves, bro. He a cult leader. He can tell these but people. He can tell any of these people, bro, to do anything that he want them to do, and they'll do it. I didn't even think about this part. 86 people. Let's go.
In the early 1990s, David really had godlike power over the 120 people he held at his base. But he was still in the real world, and he had to financially support his horrific camp.
David had to support about 120 people who cost him about $150 a month. He had to have an income.
So he started selling guns. He bought and sold so many that the price of semi-automatic rifles doubled within the few years that David was running this business. Needless to say, this attracted the FBI's attention. What he was doing wasn't exactly legal, and the police were about to discover a dozen other illegal things that were happening in Mount Carmel.
The thing that I think gave all of us pause was the fact that the entire focus of the Branch Davidian faith was centered on the concept of a major battle, the end of the world, the Battle of Armageddon, and the end times.
Indeed, David had prepared all his followers to be ready for Armageddon, and that it would happen right there at the Mount Carmel Center. He also urged everyone to be ready to sacrifice their own life in order to save the Davidian kingdom. When it became clear that the FBI was going to raid the camp, confiscate all the guns, and possibly take away the children, David knew exactly what to tell his followers. The FBI was the devil, and them coming was the Armageddon they were all expecting. The FBI had shared its case with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The ATF had surveyed the camp for 8 months, during which time they found hand grenades and several other illegal weapons coming into Mount Carmel. By November 1992, there was enough evidence to arrest David, but the ATF was concerned about his followers. They really believed he was God, and they were armed. So if they saw him being dragged away in a police car, they might open fire. So the ATF decided to lead a surprise raid on the camp instead. It began on February 28, 1993, but by then, David had somehow found out about it. It's still unclear who fired first, but 70 ATF agents were up against 120 angry Branch Davidians. Within an hour, 6 followers and 4 agents were dead. David had been shot in the wrist, and he was infuriated. He called the police, urging them to stop the raid. He ordered them as if he was Messiah, but the police literally ignored him. David then went to the first floor, but as he was climbing the stairs, he was shot in the hip. Now he was badly injured and unable to fight. That day, he called his mom.
Wow.
Mama,
Really?
they shot me and I'm dying, alright? But I'll be back real soon, okay? And I'll see y'all in the skies.
The whole ATF raid was a mess, so the FBI intervened.
What the ATF did not understand was that the people at Mount Carmel, when they looked out their windows, said, "Oh, here is the army of Babylon come to destroy our faith. We must defend our faith."
They wanted to get it over as soon as possible. Little did they know that the siege would last for 2 more months. David tried to use the siege to gain publicity. When he spoke to the FBI negotiator, he asked that he be allowed to preach a sermon over the radio. If they allowed him to, he would round up all his followers, including the 46 children on the camp.
And bringing these tanks and stuff around here, I tell you what, being an American first, I'm the kind of guy that I'll stand in front of a tank, you can run over me, but I'll be biting one of the tracks. No one's going to hurt me or my family.
The FBI indulged him, but after his sermon, David refused to hold his end of the deal. He said God had told him to hold off on the deal. 2 weeks into the siege, his followers were starving. When they complained, David just said that it was a test of their faith in him. Then the FBI started playing loud music and blazing powerful lights through the camp at night, so as to keep everyone awake at all times. Then they cut their power too.
The FBI officials had some Tibetan chants on a tape that was being played over a loud speaker system, blasting it into the Branch Davidian compound.
The psychological test has a simple goal.
And again, it was kind of psychological operations. It's like, let's keep them up, just like we're being kept up. Let's stress them out like we're being stressed out. So mutually we'll come together and say, hey, we're all tired of this.
But this was just the Armageddon that David had promised his followers. For them, it was a test. They wouldn't leave. At one point, David released 12 of the children that weren't his, but those were the only followers that would get to leave the siege. The more pressure the FBI put on them, the more they resisted. When they didn't even care about FBI tanks destroying their vehicles, the agents took another route. They sent a lawyer to try and arrange a deal with David, but whatever he offered, David refused. He knew the FBI would betray him in the end. So he wanted everyone to die in a giant blaze of fire instead, all in the name of God. On April 17th, U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno gave her green light on the use of tanks and tear gas. They had to get them out one way or another, right? But the Davidians had such a strong faith in David. They were just waiting for his command. They had zero free will at this point.
We expected that one by one we'd eventually all come out. We were kind of waiting on God through, to convey through David as to what we were to do.
But guess what? David wasn't God, and he didn't speak directly to God. He was just a man, and he was now in agonizing pain and panicking. He didn't know what to do. He just knew that he wasn't coming out alive. For the FBI, this was a hostage situation. David was keeping more than 100 people barricaded by brainwashing them.
The group that was around David would believe in
crazy, bro. I'm just sitting back, like, just looking at the shit, just imagining that one person, like she just said, bro, got over 100 people kidnapped. And he ain't holding them back. He not holding them. He ain't holding 100 people with both. He ain't holding people in his left hand, 50 people in his left hand, 50 people in his right hand. Like, y'all can't move. I'm holding all y'all. No, he's sitting right here with his hand crossed, bro. And them people not moving themselves, bro. These people, like, believe in David. Like he God. That's so crazy, bro. That's crazy.
anything he said. If he said the sky is green, they were going to believe it.
But even the FBI negotiator didn't feel in control of the situation.
The average amount of time of a hostage barricade situation in the United States is about 6 to 8 hours. The whole thing was just totally unprecedented.
Not only had the siege lasted for 51 days by now, but David was talking in Bible verses and quotes. He didn't negotiate clearly with the FBI, and to his followers the message was clear. They should use force and they should die for God. This siege was the ultimate test of their faith.
And he quite often cited a scripture in which Jesus tells his followers on the eve of his own arrest, sell your cloak and buy a sword, which in today's terminology would be buy an M16 or an AK-47.
On April 19th, barely alive anymore from all the blood loss, David was writing his interpretation of the book of Revelation. He saw himself as the Lamb, and only he was able to convey God's message.
The great carrot that David Koresh held out to the FBI and federal government was that when I finish my interpretation of the 7 seals, and I'm into it, when I finish this interpretation, then we're all going to come out.
But the FBI didn't trust him anymore. He didn't trust the FBI either, and the officers knew he would never come out without a blaze. But by now they had the upper hand. Remember the tear gas green light? It was going to happen that day, on April 19th. At 6 a.m., negotiator Byron Sage called David to inform him.
And I put the call in about 6 o'clock in the morning, warning them that we were prepared to introduce tear gas.
David just said okay. The FBI didn't know whether his followers would open fire or not, so they were prepared with 2 kinds of tear gas attacks, a low violence one and a deadly one. But there were 21 children barricaded on the compound. So the tank started out with the low violence attack, hoping David would at least release the children.
It was put in through this long probe type device on the front of this tank retriever, as well as it was fired in canisters.
The FBI was convinced that all the parents would at least let their children run out of the camp. Who wouldn't want to save their children's lives?
Exactly.
Sadly, the FBI had no idea just how brainwashed the parents were. They were prepared to die alongside their kids. At around 9...
That's sick. That's sick. That is just sick, bro. Okay, if you want to die for the cause, you be for real, y'all. Let's be for real. This shit is crazy. Let's be for real, my people. Again, let's think about this. If you down to die for the cause, are you really willing for your kids to die for that same cause? Like, you want to put them in jeopardy for that same cause? I think not. So what the fuck, bro? David had them trapped in their mind. Like, he had them, bro. He got them.
9 a.m., David rushed all the women and kids into their concrete walk-in cooler, which they used as a bunker. Although seriously wounded, he was now walking around, organizing his final stand. Then he sat down and spoke to one of his followers.
He was sitting on the floor. I went up to him and I saw a box grenade by his side. He looked at me and he said, "Do you know how to use one of these?"
The FBI feared this would happen, but David's followers started firing their guns at the officers. They now had to use the lethal dose of tear gas. At the same time, their tanks smashed into the building. Everything descended into chaos. Bits of the ceiling were falling on the women and children, men were shooting blindly, and the tanks cut the phone lines between David and the FBI. They couldn't communicate anymore, and the FBI couldn't really listen either. The tanks were making a whole lot of noise. In the heat of it all, one of the followers, Gray May, thought he saw another man pouring fuel.
And there was a guy, he looked like he was pouring something out of a fuel can onto the floor. I heard this scream out from one of the other guys, wait, not inside, do it outside. A few minutes later, I heard a call from upstairs saying the building's on fire.
Some of the other remaining Davidians said the fire was an accident, but the FBI thinks otherwise.
There's no doubt in my mind that the Branch Davidians struck the individual matches that set that compound on fire.
Now you might think, okay, they've got to escape this situation, but minutes passed and just a few people ran out.
As soon as we saw the smoke, my instructions became a request. And as that fire built, the request became a plea. David, don't do this.
But Mount Carmel burnt to the ground, and David and his followers still refused to come out. Imagine seeing this and knowing dozens of women and children are in there, refusing to save their own lives for a man who claimed he was God. Only 9 adult Davidians came out of the building. 76 others, including 21 children, burned to death inside. At the end of the horror show, the FBI rushed in to try and find David Koresh. They feared he would pull the ultimate scam.
My greatest fear was that he would have a secret David Koresh tunnel, and that the building would be hot, it would take a day or two to cool off, and then after 3 days, David Koresh would pop up out of a spider hole. 3 days, Christ has been resurrected, and that every religious Waco nut in the world would make their way to Waco, the new Mecca, and would be there to worship David Koresh, the risen Savior.
Luckily, David didn't manage to do this, but strangely enough, he managed to mirror Christ in one last way. He died that day at age 33. The FBI found his body with a gunshot wound to the forehead, shot from a close range. This means that he took his life, or he had someone else do it. This is what's left of Mount Carmel. It's a sad, gruesome sight, made even more tragic when you think it all happened because of one man.
I think he was a manipulative, functional, psychotic, a sociopath. I think he took terrible advantage of the Branch Davidians. I think those people died because of his failed leadership.
Not to talk about the children he scarred for life. It's hard to accept the amount of control that one person had over the lives of so many others. Hopefully, decades after the horrific Waco siege, those affected by David Koresh are learning to move on and have a good life. Hey, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this crazy case down in the...
Woo! Whoa, 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 whoa. That's a Martin reference, man. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That was just crazy, bro. Anna had me stuck like this, y'all, looking at this shit. Hey, man, fuck that. I said goddamn Anna was, what I said, she was like second tier, A tier, behind Mr. Ballin and Adrian. And that chapter, Mike, we put Anna up there, bro. That was the best video, bro, I ever seen from Anna, bro. This video was so good, bro. It was so engaging, bro. This was so engaging, bro. And I'm not even finna keep rambling and go and tell y'all everything I want to say about how I think about it, bro. Because we'll be right here. I'll make this video an hour long if I go on my tangent like I want to. But I will say, David is a mother. Well, was. He dead now. He dead now. But was a motherfucker, bro. To get these people to sit up in this building, bro, they know it's burning up. They know they finna die, but they still stayed there with them. I'm talking about not just one or two people, bro. Like this cult shit, bro. These people have hundreds, thousands of people behind them willing to die from their word, just because they say this. They believe in it that much, bro, so they willing to die, bro. It is fucking crazy, bro. I knew this was gonna be a good video, but I didn't think Anna was gonna show out like this. This the best video I ever seen from Anna, bro. I know I already said it before, but I gotta say it again, man. This was great, bro. Oh my God, bro. That cult shit just blow my mind. It just blow my mind, bro. It really blow my mind, bro. And then sometimes when I'm thinking about cult leaders and shit, I'm thinking like, these motherfuckers, I don't know if they really are trying to manipulate people, but sometimes I believe that they believe they own bullshit. Like, I believe David, I'm about 50-50 on it, that he may have believed that he really was the second coming of God, or was God, or Jesus, or whatever. You know what I'm saying, bro? Like, these cult leaders, bro, they think in their mind too. Like, the bullshit that they feed their cult followers, they be believing that shit in their mind too, bro. Like, they have their energy in their body and they soul that they be trying to cast out. Like, they really be believing this shit for the most part, bro. For real, bro. I believe that, bro. They be so stuck in their ways and so full of themselves till they trying to make other people get full of them like they full of them. You know what I'm saying? And it works. It really do work a lot of times. But in 2022 too, I want to say this too. We in 2022 now. That happened back in what, 1990s? I think that happened. And a lot of these stories about cults and shit, for the most part, is like cults that die. And like, it's some crazy story about cults, y'all. But I think a lot of that shit happened like kind of like back in the day. But in today's day and age, I don't think, but it still is. It's always gonna be it. But I think it's a lot less common. Like, I feel like we getting away from that. I feel like in 2022, people can see through that bullshit. Like, if ain't nobody ever talked to God by now, I'm not gonna believe that when you come tell me that God talking to you. I'm not gonna believe that shit. You know what I'm saying, bro? Like, so much time has passed, bro, so I don't believe that people and technology, it's just a lot of shit, man. It's 2022, bro. The world, life, everything just advancing more, and we getting more help to all the situations and shit. So it's becoming more and more unbelievable that you are able to talk to God, but I'm not. That's all I'm trying to say. But I digress, my people, y'all. I still went on a little tangent for a second, bro. But I'm gonna let y'all go now. Hey, hit the like button, man. This was good, bro. Like I said, bro, I'm gonna say it again. It was the best goddamn video I ever seen from Anna. Hey, putting up there with Mr. Ballin in that chapter. And Coffee House, bro. She in that tier now, bro. I love Anna, bro. I fuck with her hard, man. Fuck with y'all hard, bro. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that comment. Do all that good shit for me. And I'll see y'all again. But until then, my friends, the Bean Baby Ledge.